Welcome to Victory, the definitive authority in personal injury. Today with us is Pete Agostini. I'm Lawrence LeBrocq. Pete and I are both certified civil trial lawyers, and we're going to talk today a little bit about dog bites. Pete, there's a theory that some people have heard, I think this may be in other states, that a dog has to have a propensity for viciousness. In other words, a one bite rule. They get one free bite. Is that accurate in New Jersey?
That is not accurate in New Jersey. There is no one bite rule in New Jersey. In New Jersey, the dog bite statute imposes strict liability on the owner of a dog for a bite that occurs in a public place or on the owner's premises. There's no one bite rule in the sense that the dog has to have a viciousness propensity, a propensity for viciousness rather, or that the dog has had bitten somebody before and therefore the owner is on notice. That's not required in New Jersey. So if you're bitten on the owner's property or in a public place, there is liability under New Jersey law.
Now, people have talked about whether the person is a trespasser, an invitee. Does it matter?
Right. So a trespasser obviously is a person who is on a premises without permission, who's there without the permission of the owner of the premises. And an invitee is somebody who's there conferring some sort of a benefit upon the property owner. That's the legal interpretation under New Jersey law. That is, as far as the trespasser status of the person on the property, it doesn't negate the liability of the owner for the bite having occurred. What it might bear upon is something called comparative negligence. So if the person is trespassing and is acting in a way that may have contributed to the bite occurring, that might reduce the amount of damages awarded, but it won't extinguish the liability.
Well, how about now, what would an Amazon delivery person be considered, or a mail person, DHL? What would those be considered?
Right. So an Amazon delivery person, it's foreseeable, especially in the day of online ordering. Right. We don't go to the store anymore. It's foreseeable that you're going to order products and that people are going to come to your property to deliver that product. Also applies to somebody who's going to read your electric meter or your gas meter. It's implied that their presence on your property is permitted. So if somebody walks on to do some type of delivery or to read your meter or to do something that's it's causing you to receive a benefit, then that person is invited by law to your property. You have an obligation to keep the dog on a leash, keep the dog in the house, don't let the dog run wild. If the bell rings, put the dog away before the door is answered. Don't open the door and let the dog jump on the person, knock them to the ground and bite them. So that's when that comes into play.
So what are some of the common injuries you see in a dog bite case?
So unfortunately, they're generally bad injuries. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody who's got a nip, and they can cause some minor scarring. But when a dog bites, especially a bigger dog, it's usually a traumatic injury. We've had cases where we've had Italian Mastiffs attack our clients. I've had a case where I had a woman who was delivering campaign literature, and 3 dogs ran out the door as she was going to the front door, and the person opened the door and they jumped on her and bit her on the leg, the breast. She had to have her breast aspirated because she developed an infection. It was almost as if she was going through the type of testing that a woman would go through when they're dealing with an invasive breast procedure, and she had to relive the attack every time she had to go through that type of procedure. So they're generally scarring cases, which are potentially very bad. There's stitches or there's a permanent scarring, and then there's the psychological component to the bite as well, where it's particularly in that case. Every time this woman had to go for treatment to have her breast aspirated and tested, it was as if she were reliving the attack over and over and over again. It was very traumatic for her.
And in cases like that, you don't need, because there's strict liability, meaning that the owner is at fault, you don't have to get a liability expert, so you don't need to get a dog expert involved in a case.
Correct.
But what you do need to prove then is if you have somebody with facial scarring, what type of expert would you use in a case like that?
Right. So we've had cases where they're scarring to the face. Had a case very recently where there was scarring to the arm, where the person put her arm up in front of her face to guard her face, and the dog clamped down and wouldn't let go. There was not only scarring, but also a neurological component. There was nerve damage. There were 2 surgeries. And then there's the disfiguring scarring. So you're looking at a potential variety of experts, as you know, starting from the derma, the surface of the skin, and going inward. For the surface, you're looking at a plastic surgeon.
Right.
You want a plastic surgeon who can give an opinion as to the nature and extent of the injury, whether the injury can be improved, by what means, what kind of surgery is involved, what's the cost of future surgery, what's the residual even after the surgery. Is there going to be a scar? Is there going to be a loss of sensation? Is there going to be a pigmentation change on the skin? And that's obviously very important, particularly when you're dealing with the face, or, you know, we've had some female clients, not to say that it doesn't affect men as well, but women where their arms or their legs are scarred, it's oftentimes a bit more concerning to a woman in that situation. And then you have the other medical experts. If there's an injury beneath the skin, again, I mentioned nerve injuries, tendons are torn, nerves are damaged, they have to be repaired. You need an expert to talk about the nature and extent of those injuries, the causal relationship to the injury, of the injuries to the attack, and then the prognosis for any future suffering, any future impairment, loss of function, loss of sensation, the need for future revision surgery sometimes. So it depends on the particular person, obviously. Every time, every case is different, but those are the most common type of experts.
So there's strict liability in New Jersey, so no free bites. If your dog bites somebody, you're liable for the resulting injuries.
Correct.
How about, now you see these large dogs will run up and just jump on somebody and knock them to the ground, fracture a hip, break an ankle. Is that also fall under the strict liability rule?
So it's a little different. That is not a clear strict liability case in New Jersey. That case, that's more of a knockdown type of a case. It's more of a premises liability case in the sense it happened on somebody's property. It would be more of a premises liability case. You would be dealing with comparative negligence. What provoked the dog to jump on the person, if anything? Was the dog provoked at all? Did the person trespass? Things of that nature you look at. So it's a little different, although some of the discovery is the same. You want to, at that point, you would go into issues like the propensity of the dog to do that. Was the dog known to get loose in the neighborhood? You might want to interview people in the neighborhood if it happened in a particular place. Hey, what do you think of Mr. LeBrocq's dog? Well, the dog is a menace, always always out without a leash, running around, chasing kids. The dog is really not properly cared for, penned in, whatever the case may be, controlled. It's really more of an issue of control at that point.
Right. So how do we deal with the fact where somebody's injured in a dog bite, let's just say they're bitten on the face and there's terrible scarring, and they're incurring thousands upon thousands of dollars in medical bills, but yet they don't want to sue their neighbor.
Right.
How would you address that with a potential client, why they should still sue?
Right. Well, your homeowners, if the neighbor owns a piece of property, presumably the neighbor has homeowners liability insurance. So the homeowners liability insurance will do a few things in that situation. Pretty much every homeowner's liability insurance policy in the state of New Jersey comes with a provision or a rider for medical payment benefits, irrespective of fault.
Right.
So if I'm having a party at my house and there are little kids at the house, and one of the little kids maybe goes to the dog, tries to pull the dog's tail or something like that, and the dog bites the kid, and the kid gets hurt, or anybody at the premises, there's a provision in my homeowner's policy for the payment of medical benefits to that person, irrespective of fault.
Right.
And that's what you pay for. When you pay your premium for your insurance, and that person who owns that house is paying the insurance premium, they're paying for that kind of coverage. Also, there's coverage for liability or wrongful conduct of the homeowner that may have led to the dog bite. So again, if the dog is there, again, you don't have to prove negligence in a dog bite, in a bite case, but if the dog is there and the person has a liability insurance policy on their property, that will cover a dog bite. So most of these policies range from $300,000 in coverage upwards to $1 million, and then there are umbrellas and things of that nature. So you shouldn't feel. I always tell my clients, don't feel bad that you're suing your neighbor. It's the way that things work here. Dogs are unpredictable. People have dogs, and they insure themselves for incidents that occur with their dogs because dogs are unpredictable.
So you're really not suing the owner of the dog as much as you're suing the insurance company that insures the home or the home under the homeowner's policy.
Absolutely correct, and that goes for automobile accident cases as well, right? Everybody, you can't drive around in New Jersey without an automobile insurance policy. Right. So when the person causes a crash and you're suing the person, it's their insurance company that's covering everything, even the attorney that has to be hired. Same thing with a dog bite. If the homeowner's insurance company has to handle a claim made by you in connection with the dog bite, they're not only going to pay your medical bills and your pain and suffering caused by the dog bite, they're going to pay for the attorney that defends you in that case as well.
So if you're bitten by a dog in New Jersey, it is strict liability, means the owner is responsible for that bite. So if you do own a dog and you're renting a property, you can get renter's insurance that will protect you from your animal biting another individual. Also, in your homeowner's insurance, if you own a home, it's also a great idea if you're a homeowner to buy what's called an umbrella policy that will protect you against any issues in which you are sued. So people do not go after your own assets. You'll have an umbrella policy to cover that. For example, I have a $5 million umbrella policy on my home because I have a pool. Somebody gets injured in the pool. Somebody trips and falls at a party. They get burnt on the grill. You never know what's going to happen. It covers you and protects you from a lawsuit.
Right, and for that additional coverage, it's really it's not a big cost.
It's not.
Unfortunately, we hear a lot in our business how people don't want to make a claim. I don't want my insurance premium to go up. I don't want to use my insurance policy. I mean, the last time that I saw something like that, I think I was watching The Godfather. You got to have this. You better have this insurance policy, but don't you dare use it type of an attitude.
Right.
And it's not the way things should work. I mean, you can get this insurance. You pay a nominal amount of money for it, and you're right. Even as a renter, I mean, our office, the office that I primarily man, is in Newark, and we do get quite a few dog bites where the dog is owned by a tenant, and I've seen a lot of situations where because the tenant did not get that type of a policy to cover any bites that the dog might commit, it makes it more difficult to recover.
Right, because then you have to sue the individual, which makes it very difficult.
Right. But we've also had cases, just on that note, before we go on to another topic, I recently got a case where somebody brought their dog into a Home Depot. Now, a lot of people don't know that Home Depot is a dog-friendly business. They tell people, bring your dog in, whether it's a service dog or not. And we had a client come in, and the dog bit the client. The owner of the dog lives in an apartment, does not have insurance, but the bite still occurred on a property, a commercial property, where our client was invited to the property. You use that term, invitee.
Yep.
And the invitation is to come spend money, buy things from us. So we are pursuing the claim against Home Depot because Home Depot really, we're learning, doesn't have any particular rules or protocol. You know, what dogs are allowed, what dogs aren't. Do you have to show us that the dog is a placid animal, or can you just bring whatever you want in there? And if it bites somebody, well, too bad. And that's not right.
Now, I just want to switch gears from talking about dog bite cases. Now, you worked with PSC&G for several years.
Right.
So you've been involved on the defense of defending cases where there's an electrocution involved, severe burns. Let's talk a little bit about burn cases and how they're treated in New Jersey.
Right. So horrific injuries, physically, psychologically, emotionally, devastating injuries. And in the context of the utility company, they can arise out of several types of events. We're generally talking about natural gas and electricity. So when you look up as you're driving down the road, you should be looking at the road, obviously, but if you stop and you look up at a telephone pole line or a utility pole line,
Yep.
You'll see that there are a bunch of different wires that run from pole to pole to pole. There's telecommunication wires, there are electrical wires, there are telephone type wires, cable TV wires. The electric wires are always the highest wires. Why is that? You want to keep that as far away from people on the ground as possible. Sometimes you have people come in contact, whether they're workers who are working for one of the other utilities, climbing the pole for whatever reason, or in a bucket truck for whatever reason, might be working on a cable TV wire or a telephone wire, and might come in contact with the electrical wire. Those are cases where you can be severely burned, scarred, if not killed.
Right.
Gas explosion, same thing. I mean, these are ultra hazardous type of commodities that are being handled, electricity and gas. So when you have a gas leak and some sort of ignition causes the gas some sort of trigger causes the gas to ignite. You can have a gas leak in a home, for instance, and somebody could walk into the home, flick the switch, the light switch, and when you flick your light switch, you hear a little click. There's a little electric spark there. If the gas has reached an explosive level in the building, the whole thing could go up. Right. And the injuries are generally horrific, traumatic. We handle those cases here as well, as you know.
Yep. And that goes back years ago. There was the Durham Woods explosion in Edison where there were so many people injured in that
Right.
gas explosion, which was horrible.
And that was a little different, where there was excavation taking place, so it had nothing to do with anybody working on the actual electric or gas connections at that time. It was a contractor who was digging, and we have this, everybody's heard of the call before you dig.
Yeah.
811, right? Call 811. Don't even put a shovel in the ground if you're digging down deep to put a mailbox post in the ground before you call and get a mark out of all utilities, because in that instance, somebody was using digging equipment and struck a gas line, and there was a horrific explosion. People died, people were injured, tremendous amount of property damage, big losses.
Well, that's something people need to realize before they dig in their own yard. You just call and you have them mark out the utilities, because you do not want to go into a gas line.
Right.
Horrible. Or if you have underground electric,
Right.
you tap into that. It can be severe injuries or death.
And the utility company, it's a highly regulated industry, so there are quite a number of rules that they must follow by directive of the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. So we're not only dealing with common law principles of negligence, common law principles of responsibility and how you're supposed to conduct yourself as a reasonable utility. There are specific regulations that deal with the maintenance of their electric wires, the maintenance and repair of their gas lines. There are electrical vaults in the ground. There are street lights that need to be inspected periodically, and those sometimes they go out and there's not enough light for somebody to see what they're doing, whether they're operating a vehicle or whether they're crossing the street, and you can have horrific traumatic accidents as a result.
And we've successfully litigated those cases where there's inadequate lighting, which causes automobile collisions.
Right.
And people can't see. People say, oh, well, how could inadequate lighting? There's headlights. Well, if somebody's walking across the street and you can't see them because it's not a well-lit area, by the time the headlights hit a person, it's too late.
Right. We get an accident reconstructionist at that point. We get experts. We hire experts to look at the lighting, to look at the configuration of the road, to look at the design of the lighting, the design of the road, to look at the speeds of the vehicles, the damage caused by impact, to try to recreate what actually happens or happened in any particular crash, and that will provide us with the facts that we need to prove who's responsible.
So if somebody is injured in a explosion, or it's an electrical injury, gas injury, something that's caused by gas or electric, or inadequate lighting, why should they call GGL? Why should they call the certified trial lawyers, Lawrence LeBrocq, Pete Agostini, Ralph Gratella, Sean, all the certified trial lawyers that we have?
Right. Well, we've got a lot of experience here in this firm. You just basically answered the question. To be a certified trial attorney, you have to demonstrate a particular level of competence, and you have to have specifically demonstrated to the court that you've handled those type of cases competently. And you do that not only by saying you did that, but you have to get other attorneys who you've worked with to vouch for that. You get judges to say, this attorney's tried a case in front of me. I think this attorney's very good, competent, deserves the certification. So, we come from all of those guys, you, me, the other guys you mentioned. We all have a very diverse and pretty, I don't want to use the word impressive, but pretty full experience in our backgrounds. So I think, and it's not only just from a legal standpoint, it's just from handling people, handling cases, understanding the client, what the client's going through, understanding where the client needs to be referred in order to help the client through very difficult times.
So if somebody's injured because of the negligence of a utility company, why should they call you? What differentiates you from most lawyers?
I don't want to give away any of my strategy on the cases that I'm handling now, but I understand how a utility company works. I understand how the utility company is highly regulated. I know where to look for the standards that the utility company must follow in order to do its job properly. I've dealt with the issues. I know about fire investigations. There's something called the NFPA, National Fire Protection. There are standards for the investigation of a gas explosion, of an electrical fire, and you must get the right experts who are properly certified to investigate those scenes. Private investigator licenses, for example. Also, who know the principles of engineering associated with cause and origin fire investigation. It's a very scientific, precise type of an area of law that not everyone has experience in. I have that experience. I have attorneys send me cases because they know that I have that type of experience, and they trust our firm to do the right thing.
So if you're an individual and you're injured, whether it's a dog bite case or some other sort of personal injury, negligence on behalf of a utility company, why should they call Garces, Grabler, and LeBrocq, GGL, as opposed to someone else?
Well, we're gonna take the case. We're gonna spend money on the experts in order to investigate the facts in the manner that they need to be investigated. We know which experts to get. We're going to prepare the case for trial. We're going to have to take, in these type of cases, many depositions. We're going to front the costs because, let's face it, I mean, it's not cheap to litigate, and we're going to front the costs as part of our obligation to the client to make sure the client's cause is properly presented to a jury, and we'll try the case.
A couple more questions for you. What makes GGL an authority in the personal injury sphere?
Well, I mean, the firm has been around, what is it? Is it 56? How many years?
35 years.
35 years? Well, so Will has been an attorney for, 40 years? So, the firm has been around for an awful long time. The firm has great experience in workers' comp cases, personal injury, third-party litigation, which is where we're suing somebody other than the employer for the injury sustained. And it's the combined, the systems that we use are designed to bring the case to a point where it can be put together properly, where we get all the investigation, we get all the medical records, we make sure the medical records are certified, we make sure that the proper doctors are treating the client so that we can document the nature, extent, and permanency of the injuries and their relation to the actual incident. And we get all the proper experts together to present the case to a jury. I mean, we're not afraid to do that. I think that's the difference. We don't undersettle a case. We don't settle cases. I was telling you about one case that I'm dealing with now where after putting 2 doctors on tape for trial, now, I'm starting to get offers.
Right.
And I told the lawyer a long time ago, once I put the doctors on tape, we're going to go. And now that the doctors are on tape for trial, the other lawyer sees that we're putting our proofs together, just like I said, that's what we do. Now the money starts to flow. So we'll see what happens. The case is supposed to get tried pretty soon. But that's where I see the difference in our firm, that we do not prepare the case to settle it for the low end of fair, I'll call it, which some people say the low end of fair is just enough to make the plaintiff take the case and just enough to make the insurance company kind of wince a little bit while they're writing the check. We don't do that in every case. We look at every case individually. We look at every client individually. We treat every client like an individual. It's not, you suffered a back injury, your case is worth X. You suffered a neck injury, your case is worth Y. We look at every single aspect of the client and we prepare the case for trial.
So if you're injured and you're looking for somebody to handle your personal injury case, including dog bite cases, which we now know the owners are strictly liable, a utility case, GGL is the firm to call.
We tell a story. I just wanted to add, we tell a story for the client. The client is unique. I'll just say one thing. We have a case now where the guy's a fireman, got hurt, badly burned, badly injured in a case. We got a picture of the guy standing in front of a fire truck when he was a little kid with the fire hat. That's all this guy ever wanted to do.
Right.
And now he's in his mid-30s, and he's legally blind. I mean, he can't do it anymore. And, that's the kind of thing that we go present that to a jury in a powerful, compassionate way. So, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
That's okay. And that's how GGL wins, by treating clients like family, telling their story, maximizing the value of the claim for the clients in order for them to be able to enjoy their lives We can't make them better. We'll get them the best doctors, but what we can do is get them as much money to fulfill their lives in the future as we can. Thank you, Pete.